my entire world collapsing in a matter of minutes. I sat in quiet, with my hands shaking and my heart racing. I never imagined that my life would become something straight out of a Reddit nightmare. Until about a week ago, I thought I had it all: a stable job, a great partner, and a future that felt secure. My name is David, and I'm 29 years old. I had planned to pop the question, envisioning a lovely wedding and a loving home. However, I discovered that I had nothing at all in a single night. It all began on a typical evening. My girlfriend Lisa was taking a shower while I was sitting on the couch, aimlessly browsing Reddit. I had a few minutes to kill, because she normally spent a lot of time in there. Without searching for anything specific, my thumb moved over the screen, scrolling through arbitrary posts. I had no reservations or suspicions. However, the truth is cruelly revealed by fate. I was drawn to a post on our relationship advice. Should I confess a secret I've been hiding from my fiancé for years? Out of sheer curiosity, I clicked on it, anticipating again another cliched post full of drama. However, a shiver went down my spine as soon as I read the first few sentences. The post sounded frighteningly familiar in every way. The author explained that she had been with her lover for nearly 5 years, that they were getting ready for their wedding, and that he had great faith in her and had never asked about her history. As I read further, my chest constricted. Then I reached the section that broke everything. But there's something he doesn't know, something I've never had the courage to tell him. At the very beginning of our relationship, I betrayed him. And not just a one-time mistake. I slept with his best friend. I had a suffocating feeling. No way, correct? However, every detail was too precisely in sync. Was she talking about her best friend? My best friend Jake, whom I had confided in completely, had to be that person. For years, we had been inseparable while living together in college. With my heart pounding in my ears, I gripped my phone more tightly. I compelled myself to read on. It only happened a few times, and after that, we stopped. I swore to myself I would never do anything like that again. I've tried to be the best girlfriend possible, tried to move on, tried to convince myself that it was in the past. But now that our wedding is getting closer, I'm terrified. I'm scared that if he ever finds out, he'll never forgive me. What should I do? I was having trouble breathing. Everything I believed to be true about Lisa, our love, and our ideal existence was false. I went back and read the post. And once more, it was too much for my brain to process. I kept looking for evidence that this was merely a strange coincidence, that she wasn't the one, that I was simply thinking too much. However, no. There was no denying the way she portrayed me and our relationship, as if nothing had changed. I glanced up toward the bathroom, where the sound of running water persisted. I read Lisa's confession, but she didn't know it. What should I have done? Should I go up to her as soon as she leaves? Or should I get additional evidence and act as though I didn't know? I felt a flurry of emotions, including embarrassment, sadness, and wrath. I put my phone down on the table and took a deep breath to keep from losing it. After tonight, I was aware that nothing would ever be the same. And I was certain of one thing. I had had enough of being made fun of. My head was not accepting what I had just read, so I sat there looking at my phone, like I had just been dumped into icy water. My entire body felt numb. The constant sound of running water in the bathroom was the only thing keeping me grounded. Lisa continued to take a shower while humming softly, as if nothing had happened. However, things weren't going well. My breath was weak, and I clenched my jaw. I wanted to rush into the bathroom and confront her immediately, ask her to explain herself, or do anything else. However, a sick part of me required more at the same time, more evidence, more clarity. Because I had to be completely certain if I was going to ruin everything we owned. My fingers scrolled through the comments on their own. You need to tell him. The guilt will eat you alive. If you love him, he deserves to know. It was years ago. Just take it to the grave. Why ruin a good thing? Reading them made me ill. My life and my suffering were being treated like a pointless argument. As if, amid all the online commotion, this was simply another clumsy confession. But to me, it was all of this. I navigated to her profile. Perhaps I was anticipating a disposable account, but as I clicked, my stomach fell. For years, she had been posting dozens of posts, advice on relationships. We'd had silly disputes, even very intimate moments that I had assumed were private. I browsed while my hands trembled. Our first anniversary had come up in conversation. The time I took her on a trip as a surprise. She also shared a message about how she looked after me when I was ill. But why did I feel so angry? About Jake, she had posted concerning him. I have a secret I can never tell my boyfriend. Does a mistake from years ago still matter? Would you forgive someone for something they never told you? With my stomach in knots, I clicked on each one. The truth was there, hidden behind the words, but she never named anyone or revealed too much. She had been chatting to strangers about me, asking if she ought to inform me, pleading for confirmation. She had also made the decision to continue lying. Steam poured out into the hallway as the bathroom door creaked open, and I looked up. Lisa came out with her damp hair stuck to her shoulders and a towel wrapped around her. She smiled languidly at me. "Hey, babe," she murmured, using another towel to smooth her hair. "What are you looking at?" To maintain an even voice, I made myself swallow the knot in my throat. "Just reading stuff online," I responded as I put my phone down and locked it. Nothing caught her attention. Still warm from the shower, she simply came up and planted a gentle peck on my cheek. As she ran her fingertips down my arm, she coaxed, "You should come join me next time." Before I could stop myself, I flinched. There was something wrong with her touch. She must have realized because she cocked her head, producing a playful pout. "What's up with you? You're acting weird." I made myself laugh. "Just tired." She tugged at my hand and murmured, "Then, come to bed." I paused. "Don't go. Don't touch her. Don't act like nothing happened," was what my mind was telling me. However, I wasn't prepared. Not quite yet. So I stood up and went after her. The hardest thing I had ever done was lie in bed with her that night. Her breathing was regular and gentle, and she fell asleep almost immediately. In contrast, I gazed at the ceiling while my mind raged inside my skull. I imagined them together each time I closed my eyes. Jake, my closest companion, the man who had spent years standing behind me, the man I had put my trust in. Lisa, too, my beloved woman. My claws dug into my palms as I balled my fists beneath the sheets. I felt like screaming, to shatter something, to sprint. But I had to be intelligent. I had to know everything. I took Lisa's phone the following morning while she was taking another shower. She never made any changes to her password. And my heart almost stopped the moment I opened her texts, as Jake's name was in the exact spot. Gazing at Lisa's phone screen, my hands were trembling. Jake's name was prominently displayed at the top of her texts, like a ticking time bomb. My heart pounded so loudly that I felt it could wake her, and my gut wrenched. It was this, the truth moment. With my fingertips lingering over the screen, I took a deep swallow. I secretly hoped there wouldn't be anything. I might have overreacted. The Reddit thread might have been outdated. She may have disconnected with Jake years ago, but I knew better in my heart. I tapped on the thread of messages. It was a brief conversation. It wasn't a relief, even if it should have been, because I was fully informed by the few messages that were present. "Lisa, we must speak." "Jake, nothing is worth discussing. Simply let it go." "Lisa, I am unable to. I'm going crazy." "I believe he is aware of something." "Jake, he doesn't. Don't panic. Be normal. I was on the verge of vomiting. I went up and scrolled. Older messages were gone. She must have erased them. However, this was sufficient. She wasn't merely concealing the past. Now, she was deliberately lying. After locking her phone and putting it back where I found it, I left the bedroom. My body was operating automatically while my mind was racing. I had to breathe. I had to think. I took large breaths of the clear morning air as I stepped out onto the balcony. However, it was ineffective. There was nothing I could do to quench the anger in my breast. Jake, Lisa. I had loved two persons. I would have done anything for these two individuals. And I had been betrayed by both of them. I made my knuckles white by clenching the balcony railing so tightly. Now what was I meant to do? Face Lisa? Should I smash my phone against a wall? Go to Jake's house and beat the living daylights out of him? No. I had to be intelligent. In the same way that they had wounded me, I had to injure them. I made myself take a deep breath and suppress my rage long enough to come up with a solution. When I returned inside, Lisa was still asleep, cuddled up as if she had no worries at all. I gazed at her. The woman I had loved, trusted, and planned a future with for years. Right now, she was merely a stranger now, and I wasn't supposed to show pity to strangers. I swung around and picked up my car keys. I was certain of my destination, Jake's flat. I gripped the wheel so tightly that my fingers became numb, driving like a man possessed. Anger and betrayal swirled together in my consciousness, making it impossible for me to distinguish between the two. It wasn't until I noticed the city lights fading past me that I realized how rapidly I was moving. Jake had a modest, unremarkable apartment across town. I was familiar with the route. It was a place I had visited countless times. Drinks, game nights, and late-night discussions about relationships, life, and Lisa. My stomach rumbled. How many times had I told him how much I loved her while he sat across from me, nodding along? How often had he told me that I was fortunate to have her? How many times had he lied while staring me in the eye? My hands were steady by the time I drove up outside his building. My brain seemed to have gone into autopilot, and my body felt strangely at ease. I was moving instead of even thinking anymore. Every step I took reverberated in the deserted hallway as I strode up the stairs. No one else was awake because it was too early. Excellent. I paused outside his door and rapped on it. Once, twice, quiet. I pounded again, more forcefully. From inside came a sleepy voice, a shuffling motion. The door eventually broke open. Without a shirt, Jake stood there massaging his eyes. His face was half sleepy, and his hair was in disarray. He appeared normal for a moment, just an old acquaintance of mine, waking up to a surprise guest. Then he caught sight of my face. His face transformed in an instant. His entire body stiffened, and his gaze darted behind me as if seeking a way out. "David," he murmured in a strained voice. I stopped him in his tracks. I pushed the door open and pushed him back. Stumbling, he landed against the couch. "Dude, what the devil?" His voice was still low, as if he didn't want to wake his neighbors, but he snapped. I closed the door after myself. I said, "Sit down." Not even my voice sounded like mine. It was chilly, empty. Jake paused. "What's going on, dude?" "Take a seat." Yes, he did, slowly. On his knees, his hands balled into fists. "Look, if this has to do with you and Lisa," I interrupted, clenching my jaw. "I understand." His face turned white, for a moment only. Then he shook his head and feigned a laugh. "Dude, I have no idea what you're talking about." I grabbed my phone and threw it on the table before him. "Go through it." He remained still. "Read it." Jake looked at the screen for a moment. He swallowed, and I watched his throat bob. As he browsed through the messages and the Reddit post, the color faded from his face. I observed him, observed the precise moment he came to the conclusion that there was no escape, His entire body was tense when he looked up at last. Listen, David, it was a long time ago, dude. It had no significance. I chuckled. A bitter, acerbic tone. It had no significance? It was an error, he spoke hastily. It simply occurred. We were intoxicated. Okay, so we stopped. Years have passed since then. We didn't intend to cause you harm. I gazed at him. My alleged closest friend. I used to trust him more than anybody else. I said it again softly. Didn't want to hurt me. So you lied to me instead of telling me. For many years. Jake looked annoyed and ran a hand through his hair. Well, what was I meant to do? And wreck everything by telling you? Man, you were content. She adores you. I moved ahead slowly. Repeat that. What? Tell me she loves me. He paused. He opened his mouth, then shut it again, since he was aware. He was aware of how foolish that sounded. I shook my head and released a breath. You are pitiful. He clenched his jaw. Look, just hit me and get it over with if that's why you came here. I gazed at him. Is that what he believed this to be? That I would simply strike someone, vent my rage, and then leave? No, that was insufficient, I muttered. You don't get off that easy. You cannot act as though this was a simple error and carry on with your life as if nothing had occurred. I swung around and picked up my phone. His face briefly lit up with relief, as if he believed I was going away. However, I wasn't. I retrieved Lisa's number and pressed the call button. Jake's eyes got bigger. Dude, Lisa's voice, still sleepy from sleep, came across the speaker. Hey, babe, where have you gone? I kept my gaze fixed on Jake. Jake and I are together. Quiet. Her voice faltered then. What? I understand, Lisa, I answered in a composed tone. Everything is known to me. A sharp breath. I can explain, David. I ended the call. Jake's fists were grasping the couch, and his face looked pale. How are you going to proceed? I smiled icily at him. Observe. The first then began sending texts. I supplied screenshots, the post on Reddit, their communications, everything, to all of you. Lisa's companions, her relatives, Jake's colleagues, the group conversations, anyone who was important. Jake's face flashed with panic as he reached for my phone. David, please, I pushed him away. Hard. He fell and hit the table with a thud. Avoid touching me, I growled. His eyes were wild with dread as he stared up at me, breathing heavily. He was aware. His life was over. Excellent. I left him there, in a hurry, rushing to repair the damage before turning and exiting through the door. My phone was already overflowing with missed calls, messages, and desperate excuses by the time I reached my car. I paid them all no attention, because I felt free for the first time in days. Silently, I drove. No background noise, no music, just the pounding of my heart and the sound of the road beneath my tires. Calls and texts from Lisa, Jake, common friends, and those who had recently viewed the screenshots kept vibrating on my phone. I paid them all no attention. I didn't have to listen to their justifications. I didn't have to listen to Lisa's heartfelt apologies. Jake's attempts to defend his years-long betrayal of me weren't necessary. It was their turn. The truth was in the open now. I turned off the engine as I pulled into an empty parking lot. My knuckles hurt from holding on so tightly, yet my hands were still on the wheel. I let out a deep exhale while gazing at the shadowy horizon. I ought to have been relieved, ought to have felt validated. Instead, I felt as though I had burned everything down and now had nothing left. A bizarre, empty feeling that was like a deep pit in my chest. My world revolved around Lisa, my future. And now, another liar she was. My best friend had been Jake, a sibling. Right now, he was nothing. I was startled out of my reverie by a buzzing vibration. One more call. This time, From Maddie, Lisa's closest friend. After hesitating, I responded, David? Her tone was urgent and piercing. What on earth is happening? Lisa is going crazy. I laughed a little dryly. She probably is, I said. She said you. Maddie paused, letting out a breath. David. She claimed that you shared screenshots with her family. I just got a call from her mother. How on earth were you thinking that? I responded icily. I was thinking that I deserved the truth. She made a mistake, didn't she? Years ago, though, because she loves you. She didn't tell you I tightened my jaw. Stop uttering that. David, I tightened my hold on the phone and said, Maddie, she doesn't love me. She had enough self-love to tell lies. While she kept this hidden from me, she loved herself enough to allow me to pop the question. Despite everything, she continued to text Jake behind my back, since she loved herself so much. Quiet. Maddie sighed after that. How are you going to proceed? I gazed at the street. I thought that was the question. Now what? They were exposed by me. The damage was already done. There was no way out of this. I'm not sure, I said, and I was being honest for the first time in days. Maddie paused, then more gently, Are you all right? No, not even close. However, I was unable to express that. I just hung up instead. I didn't return home, not to Lisa, not to the residence that we co-constructed. I spent hours driving around in circles, allowing my thoughts to roam around the wreckage of my former existence. I had already decided by the time the sun began to peak above the horizon. I was done with Lisa. This could not be fixed. No second chances. I texted her just once. Me, we're done. Later, I'll stop over to retrieve my belongings. Avoid being there. She answered right away. A deluge of mails. Sorry, pleading, desperate. I didn't read them. She was blocked by me. Jake was also barred by me. Finally, I exhaled a slow, tremulous breath. It was done. It would be painful for a long time, but I knew the truth now at least. Furthermore, a lifetime of lies was preferable to the truth, no matter how painful it was.